Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, the #1 YouTube channel for you to level up your communication skills, learn the art of public speaking, social skills, and personal branding to take your message to the world. For today's episode, we're entering the world of public speaking, and I'm going to be talking to you about the difference between a victim and a victor. Public speaking, it's seen as the #1 fear in the entire planet. It's ahead of death. It's ahead of the fear of dogs, which is a thing, by the way. It's called cynophobia. You learn something new. Ahead of the fear of snakes and so much more. The #1 fear on the planet, which is public speaking, is known as glossophobia. If you hate speeches, you are glossophobic. But why? Because if you think about it, we're speaking all the time. Whether we're having conversations, whether we're speaking in class, whether we're speaking in a group. I mean, what's so bad about speaking in front of an audience? Well, here's the thing. When you intellectually try to answer the question, it doesn't make much sense. It doesn't make much sense because this is a fear, an emotion. And an emotion, when you try to intellectually break it down, typically falls flat. What you want to be able to do with an emotion is to simply experience it and understand it from within. And that's where the intellect falls flat, but us humans, we like to break things down intellectually, very logically. And that's why a lot of people struggle with public speaking fear for the rest of their life. It's because they take the wrong approach to dissecting an emotion. You gotta experience the fear if you want to conquer it. You gotta feel it to free yourself from it. But all this stuff, it sounds like theory at first, but once you start truly internalizing what I'm saying, you start realizing that public speaking, it's all about mindset. Are you approaching it with the right attitude, or are you someone who is approaching it with fear? And if you're approaching it with fear, you gotta ask yourself the next question. Do you think the fear can be fixed, or do you think you are fixed in fear forever? For you to understand this, I want to tell you a story about two cousins. One's name is Felix, the other's name is Jorge. The story goes like this. Felix is from Florida, and Jorge is from California. So they're from two different parts of the US. Now, despite them being from two different parts, they have the same problem. They're both glossophobic. They both hate public speaking. Now, as they're about to graduate college, they both realize that, the real world, it's not going to be that kind to our fears. We better fix this public speaking anxiety, otherwise we're going to lose out on a lot of opportunities. So Felix joins a Toastmasters club in Florida, and Jorge joins a Toastmasters club in California. Both of them go into the club the first day, and they have the same exact challenge. They are called up on stage for the Toastmasters table topics portion. Now, the table topics portion is when you get called on stage, you're given a random topic, and you have to give a 1 to 2 minute speech on it. Well, here's the thing. Both of them hate public speaking, so 1 or 2 minutes feels infinite. Well, Felix is first. Felix gets called on stage, and he's like, Felix ended up choking. Jorge gets called up on stage, and he's like, Jorge ends up choking on stage as well. Both of these two individuals failed their first speech. Now, once they're done, they go home and they have to do some serious soul searching because they failed in front of so many different people. Is public speaking right for me? Can I figure out public speaking? Felix says that he's going to take 2 weeks off. But in 2 weeks, he guarantees that he is going to go back to the Toastmasters club and he's going to figure this whole thing out, one way or another. Jorge says, Toastmasters isn't for me. Toastmasters is a scam. Man, I can't believe they tricked me into going to this meeting. It was never going to work out in the first place. They just want my money. So Jorge does not plan on going back to Toastmasters again. Well, a few weeks goes on by, and Felix keeps on going to these Toastmasters meetings. He keeps conquering his fear a little bit more each time, and eventually, as a few weeks goes on by, he's able to speak in front of others with grace. Now for Jorge in California, as a few weeks goes on by, he starts telling all of his friends, oh, you're thinking about going to Toastmasters? Don't even bother, man. It's a scam. They're trying to get your money. It is completely a waste of your time. I went a few times and I didn't like it. But in reality, he only went once. Now a few more weeks goes on by, and this time, both Felix and Jorge's cousin, Luis, is getting married. And in a lot of Spanish weddings, they have multiple best men. So he wants both of his cousins, Felix and Jorge, to be the best men at his wedding. Felix is like, hell yeah, I'll do it. I figured out this whole public speaking thing, and I'm going to give you an amazing speech, cuz. But Jorge is like, well, here's the thing, bro. I think you should just have one best man, just like a lot of weddings do. You don't need two. All right, you don't need me. Luis is upset, but Luis is like, all right, bro, that's fine. Now, the big wedding day finally shows up, and all the cousins are in one table together. Felix gets called on stage, and Felix gives a best man speech that will be remembered for ages. All the cousins in the table are clapping. All the 500 people in the wedding is clapping. They can't believe that Felix is such an amazing public speaker. I mean, look at him. He's moving with grace. He's able to tell jokes. He's able to tell stories. He is amazing. And everyone is awestruck. Besides Jorge. Jorge is looking at his cousin like, oh, what's the big deal? Anyone could do this. I mean, I could have done this, but Toastmasters was a scam, so I never was able to figure it out. But deep inside, something about Jorge feels like it's wrong. Well, as the speeches are done, the dinner is being served, and a lot of people in the cousins' table, they're talking. They're asking Jorge, yo, I heard Luis asked you to be one of the best men. How come you decided that you weren't going to give a speech? And Jorge's like, well, I tried this whole public speaking thing out, but it just didn't work. And they're like, how'd you try it out? Well, I went to this club called Toastmasters, but all they wanted was my money. It just didn't work out, man. Really? Well, we were talking to Felix earlier, and he said that's how he learned public speaking. He said he went to a Toastmasters club, he invested in it, and he was able to figure it out. How come you weren't able to do that, bro? And this time, they're like, yo, Felix, come here, bro. Jorge is saying Toastmasters is a scam. Felix is thinking, wait, what? It's not a scam. It made me a great public speaker. Well, what happened with you, bro? Now the two just go back and forth talking about their two different experiences. But is there a point? Because Jorge, as you can tell, he became a victim of the situation. And here's the thing. In the real world, there's a lot of Jorges in this world where they try something, they fail, and rather than rise back up and go towards it again, they start making excuses. And later on, they may try to address these excuses with their intellectual mind. Well, why did I choke like that? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? While in reality, they can't, because it's a fear. It's something that needs to be experienced and gone through anyways. But Jorge, he let his intellectual mind take over. He quit even before the race truly begun. And eventually, that emotion took up a life of its own. It felt stronger and stronger fear, and eventually it took grasp of his ego. And his ego was the one that was making excuses for himself. His ego was what was calling Toastmasters a scam. Felix had the same exact experience as Jorge. Same exact experience. They both choked. But Felix was different. He realized that he couldn't intellectually get his way out of this one. He needed to wait 2 weeks, feel these emotions, and truly feel it, not run away from it, not splurge in TV, not go to random parties to distract himself, but he was going to sit with these emotions and he was going to figure out, okay, what are these emotions trying to tell me? And eventually, after sitting with these emotions for a long period of time, you know what happened? What happened was he started to realize that this was not the end of everything. Despite feeling these emotions, he was still seeing another light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what allowed him to keep on going and going and going. Ultimately, the game of public speaking comes down to a game of mindset. Are you acting like a victim or are you acting like a victor? And the core difference between these two parties is the loyalty towards their habits. You see, Jorge, he's not that loyal to his habits. He's someone who's just like, oh, the circumstances are going to define me. While Felix was so much different. Felix is like, no, I'm very, very loyal to my habits. I'm going to make sure that my habits are going to keep on fine-tuning and keep on elevating me towards different areas. This group right here, victims, they're constantly acting like snakes. They're constantly being negative. They're constantly being the kind of people that are just shifting. They don't have any long-term goals. They don't have much willpower, much perseverance. While the victor is bullseye mind. They're focused. And you may be wondering, all right, Armani, why are you talking about mindset so much for public speaking? Because that's all it comes down to. Why do you think public speaking is the number one fear on the planet? It's the number one fear because the mindset regarding it is a little off. When you start expecting that public speaking is just going to be gifted towards you, that's when you start having the mindset of a victim. You start expecting things. You start feeling entitled. While you have to accept that public speaking is the number one fear on the planet. The number one fear, even ahead of death. So when you realize this, you gain more perspective. And you say, all right, well, even if I do fail a few times in the beginning stages, I'm still going to keep on going. Because how well will it do for my confidence if I figure out the number one fear on the entire planet? Think about that. Because confidence is not some blanket act that everyone just does. This is what you have to do in order to become confident. Instead, it's small, different wins that you have with yourself. You keep winning yourself over. So view speech building like that. Every speech that you give, even if you choke, give yourself a pat on the back because you got on stage in the first place. A lot of people, they're just sitting on the sidelines. They're just like, thank God I'm not the one on stage. But you even putting yourself in the position to embarrass yourself and not say anything, choke, is still a win in itself. It's multiple losses which eventually turn into a W. And when you start realizing this, you start approaching public speaking from the mindset of a victor. The next time you go to Toastmasters, once this whole lockdown thing is ending, you want to start asking a lot of the Toastmasters vets, yo, what was your first speech like? And you'll be shocked how many of them tell you that their first speech ever, they choked. They didn't say a single word. I choked my first ever speech. I didn't say a single word. I was embarrassed, but I just kept it going. Other Toastmasters were embarrassed, but they kept it going. When you're a little kid, you don't keep on thinking, well, I shouldn't do this, it'll embarrass me. You do something, and the whole concept of embarrassment doesn't even exist. That's what it comes down to being a mindset of a victor. A victor, in their world, embarrassment eventually ceases to exist. Anytime you try something new for the first time, yeah, you're going to feel embarrassed, especially with communication skills, with all these people watching you. But eventually, the fear of embarrassment is going to subside. You don't have to be a victim anymore. And that's when you start waking up. All it takes is 3 to 4 speeches to rewire your mindset regarding public speaking. Just 3 to 4 speeches to completely shift your life narrative. I often call public speaking one of the best workouts for your internal world. Just like we go to the gym to work out our muscles, we need to do something that works out our internal world, our mindset, our attitude, our emotions, self-image, etc. Public speaking will do all of that. Now remember the story of Felix and Jorge the next time you're thinking about quitting something that you began. Ask yourself if you're going to be a victim who quits and starts shit-talking left and right about something that they were too embarrassed to face again. Or if you're going to be like a victor, like Felix, who felt the embarrassment, kept it going, and eventually the embarrassment starts to melt off of them and they go from a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's all down to mindset. Are you a victim or are you a victor? That choice is up to you. Thank you for joining the Armani Talks YouTube channel, and I'll catch you on the next episode.